Pitcher Nailed Down. I'm Jason Gilbo at JGilbo11. With me is Spencer Limbach at Spencer_JL. Taking a look at pitchers for today's 15-game slate. Lots of options. You got guys up top, some solid mid-range guys, and you're probably looking at those mid-range guys just because you're trying to figure out how to get some Coors bats into your lineup, and we'll definitely cover that. Jumping right into things, you got Rays and Yankees, Matt Moore, CC Sabathia, two southpaws on the hill. In Yankee Stadium, which is an appealing 8.5 over-under, which I believe did jump up. I think it was 8 earlier in the day. Matt Moore, kind of an intriguing play as far as tournaments go tonight. Been solid to start the year. Obviously, the Yankees' offense not good against left-handers, especially with all those lefties in their lineup. I know they have a couple guys that can't slide over to the right side, but overall, it's not a matchup that's going to scare me off of Moore tonight.
Right. I don't think either of these pitchers are in play for fantasy purposes. Like you said, Yankee Stadium, two decent lineups there. And there's a little bit of precipitation in the mix. At least that's what it's saying early in the day. A good 30-40% chance, wind blowing out to left center, 10-15 miles an hour. So it really looks like a stay away for pitching purposes. Maybe pick up a couple cheap bats to help out a stack, your Colorado Dodgers stack. I know one bat that I really like in that lineup, if he is batting cleanup again, is Steve Pearce on FanDuel is basically minimum salary. So for the pitchers, no for me. Maybe looking at a couple cheap bats there.
Yeah, definitely. Russell and I mentioned, some Rays guys, Logan Forsythe and Evan Longoria, if you kind of wanted to be a little bit different tonight. Other two guys who should be able to do damage off Sabathia. But yeah, that Pierce call, that's one that can definitely separate you from the field tonight. That's looking pretty chalky already. Next one, got Twins Nationals, Kyle Gibson, Gio Gonzalez, Washington strong favorites here, minus 151, 7.5 over under. Gio Gonzalez, looking at a team of Minnesota that has hit lefties well in the past. They do have a high strikeout rate, kind of a boomer bust offense. Gonzalez, I think the price makes him a little less intriguing for me, but I think he does have a decent upside chance going up against this Twins offense tonight.
Yeah, I really like him, especially looking on FanDuel, where the difference between him and John Lester is pretty significant. You have a 1,600 price gap there. In comparison on DraftKings, that's only 900. So looking at him a little more on FanDuel, this Minnesota offense is starting to wake up finally, but you have to consider that their past, 6 or so games that they've been doing better was against some pretty mediocre pitching. So Gio Gonzalez is a little bit of a class above the pitchers they had been facing. He is a left-hander. There's a lot of right-handed sluggers for Minnesota, but they're a lot better against hard-throwing left-handed pitchers. That's where their power really comes to the forefront. Gio's kind of more of a finesse pitcher that changes speeds, has a good slider, has a good cutter that he can really get going. So I think he can really kind of tame down these bats tonight and confuse some of those young hitters for Minnesota. So I think he's a pretty solid option all formats.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And as you mentioned, Gonzalez, kind of a crafty guy, 10% swinging strike percentage, going back to last year, a decent K rate. So I think he definitely checks out in that department. I think a win is pretty likely. You got Kyle Gibson on the other side. Nationals should be able to provide some run support for Gonzalez. But overall, it's not a game I'm expecting a ton of production in as far as bats go.
Yep.
Next game here, we got Athletics and Blue Jays in the Rogers Center, over-under of 8. Toronto, 131 favorites there. Sonny Gray, Aaron Sanchez, you and I are both intrigued with Sanchez, talking about him before the show, just because his price tag is cheap. It looks like he's kind of figured out left-handers, although A's have a couple guys that are worthy of maybe taking a look at. But overall, he's been strong this year, and I think this is a matchup where he can really come out and throw another quality start. And a win might not be likely or, as likely as we want it to be, but at this price tag, you don't necessarily need one.
Yeah, and he only has 1 win in 3 starts this year, and he's still averaging 41 FanDuel points per. I really like him, and I think he's going to be a lot more popular than I previously thought when I wrote up the Pitching Pulse article for today, because I failed to consider the Dodgers-Rockies game that everyone's going to want exposure to, and Sanchez is really reasonably priced for with upside, that most people have probably looked that way, then stack that game, the Dodgers game, around him. And I think that's certainly a viable strategy in both cash games and GPPs tonight.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking, into that way. I don't think there's, you do have Lester, you do have King Felix, Harvey in a possible weather game and a good spot against the Braves. But yeah, I think paying down just makes a little bit more sense to me tonight. And I think Sanchez being at that price tag and what he's been doing and then facing this day's offense just seems it grows on me the more as the day goes on, as he kind of leading the way in cash games for me. On the other side, I mean, Sonny Gray, respectable arm, but overall against this Jays offense, not in play for me. Assuming the same for you.
Yeah, not worth it. Definitely not tonight.
Yeah. Next one here, Indians and Tigers, Josh Tomlin, Justin Verlander, 8.5 over/under. Detroit are small favorites. Both these offenses kind of up and down throughout the year so far. Tomlin, interesting play, but he's got a lower ground ball rate and kind of allows a ton of homers at times, which does concern me against this, powerful Tigers offense. These are two arms that on a 15-game slate that I think I'm staying away from.
Yeah, Tomlin is one of those guys. He kind of compares to Aaron Sanchez, and he's really impressed so far in this young season. Has a really good strikeout rate, but I mean, if you just consider the opponent against Detroit, and I believe Cleveland's an underdog here, or it's very close. Verlander on the other side, really no slouch either. But I don't think I'm really going to target either of these guys, especially for the price points. Tomlin is quite a bit more expensive than Sanchez, and you have to consider they're really around the same projection level, and Sanchez has the better matchup at home. So all those things considered, especially price on Verlander and Tomlin, I don't think I'm really going with either.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And the Tigers' offense, I mean, obviously it's a small sample size to start the year, have struck out quite a bit against right-handed pitching. But obviously, I mean, really 1 through 6. I mean, if you even want to add Saltalamacchia at the end of that, who's been hitting well so far. Yeah, this offense, I don't see a ton of upside for Tomlin. And then Verlander, although he's held lefties at bay so far, I still think this Cleveland offense is going to give him a little bit of trouble tonight. Next one here, you got Cubs and Reds. A big shootout last night. Obviously, Arrieta had the no-hitter, and I want to get your take on this. One cash game guy, is Arrieta number one for you?
What's that?
Arrieta, is he the top cash game guy out of baseball?
Oh yeah, I mean, especially, it looks like Kershaw. I don't know what's going on with him. He's just, trying to make the appearance that he's human, so people don't look into his history too much. Maybe something like that. But I don't know, maybe we should be looking at Arrieta for those purposes. He's just a cut above everyone else right now, not allowing anything. And, this Reds offense isn't great, but they're not a slouch either. I mean, they're decent. They can put up some good numbers. But Arrieta is just way too good. And, I mean, his teammate tonight taking the bump, John Lester, I really like him for cash game purposes. I mean, it's hard not to like a 215 favorite. And consider that's on the road too. So Vegas really loves him. He's coming off a 10 strikeout performance last game. And it's within the realm of possibility he could get there again. The only thing kind of, leaving me a little bit suspect of using him is the price point. It's hard to work in those Dodger bats, those Rockies bats around him, all of them that you want to get in, that is. And the weather is a little bit of a concern. It looks like most of the rain in that game will come early on, so we could see a scenario where it's a delay to start the game. And then once they go, it's fine. They'll play it through, but you never really know. I mean, those storms can kind of hover around the stadium and come back, and that's the last thing you want, especially when you're shelling out the salary for Lester, is him to, sit on the bench for an hour or so in a rain delay and then be done for the night after 3 innings. So just something to take into consideration and monitor as this afternoon goes along.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And any take that the Reds, they've kind of been up and down against Lester since he's joined Chicago. And one thing that I kind of take into consideration is they do have some guys who can get on base and give Lester some fits as far as base running goes, which kind of puts him into trouble at times. You think of Billy Hamilton, Jay Bruce is a guy who's capable of swiping a bag every now and then. Is that something that might scare you off of him as well?
A little bit. I mean, it's something you definitely have to factor into the conversation, especially when you're weighing price points between all these different guys, and if you have that little extra shred of doubt in the back of your mind, plus it's a pretty good park factor there in Cincinnati. Obviously didn't come into play last night with Jake Arrieta, but sometimes Lester can get bit with that. Sometimes he can get bit with the long ball. So, I mean, the way this slate's organized, and as I said, with the expensive Dodger bats, I might go cheaper, but Lester's certainly still in the conversation for me.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And he has the highest K percentage on the slate here, 25% going back to last season. So the strikeouts are definitely there, as we saw that this season. But overall, you got to like his win odds. And as you mentioned, the weather is a concern, or could be a concern moving on throughout the day. But another weather one, Mets and Braves, Matt Harvey versus Bud Norris, 7.5 over under, Mets 180 favorites. There is some rain in this one. Matt Harvey, hasn't been quite looking like himself so far this season, but I'm expecting him to bounce back pretty quickly. If weather shapes up tonight, I think Harvey's kind of an interesting tournament play against this Braves team, and kind of a swerve off of maybe. Obviously, it would be off of Coors bats, but off of Lester as well.
Yeah, I can see that rationale, but for me personally, I kind of want to see it from him before I invest in him, especially with the majority of my action, or at least a good chunk of my action. As it stands, maybe if you're rolling out 10 plus lineups, you can put him on one or two, just because this is a really good matchup. That's assuming that the weather is okay for the most part. Looks like 35 to 40, maybe 50% chance of rain throughout that. So definitely need to keep tabs on that as the afternoon goes. But I'm probably going to stay away. To be honest with you, I don't think I'm going to have any exposure to Harvey. I know he's going to have a breakout game sometime, but like I said, I just want to see it first.
Yeah, no, I definitely can see that view. And I think if you are, as you mentioned, if you're rolling out multiple lineups, I think he is a way to go because it also forces you to kind of use some other hitters, off of some other games that there's still plenty of high scoring games out there. And you can look at guys like from the Red Sox Astros game. Also, that Pirates Diamondbacks is kind of an interesting GPP because all those right-handers. So I think it kind of forces you to be a little bit different tonight, which may not necessarily be a bad thing.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I can't disagree. I think Harvey, as bad as he's looked so far, there's been some other starters that, I mean, Kluber's a guy I want to see pitch better. So, I mean, I can definitely understand that logic.
Yeah.
8-10, you got Rangers and White Sox, two lefties on the hill again, over-under of 8. And Martin Perez, Jose Quintana. Quintana's my favorite pick from this game, and I think he's a guy I'm intrigued with tonight. Obviously, I think he's going to come with a little bit lower ownership because you're looking at the Rangers and what they did to Dallas Keuchel last night. Obviously, another lefty. But overall, this Texas offense against left-handers and even against righties, they're kind of boom or bust. And I think Quintana always a quality start guy. You don't like the park factors as much being in U.S. Cellular, but overall, I think he's in for a decent night tonight.
Yeah, I wrote him up in the pitching polls as a very good GPP option who will have a lower than deserved ownership percentage, and he's even borderline cash game playable as well. I believe he's a minus 160 favorite, so you have to really like that. Should get plenty of run support against Martin Perez on the other side. And the thing I really like about Quintana is that he's really good against righties, something you wouldn't really expect from a left-handed guy like that, but he has the right pitches. He has a nice, nasty slider that he can get right in there to the right-handed bat. So he can really neutralize those guys. And if you think about it, Texas doesn't have many right-handed bats that you're concerned about. I mean, they have DeShields, they have Beltres towards the top of that lineup. But Beltres is even better against righties than he is lefties. So kind of reverse splits going on there and not much power other than that from the right side of the plate. So you think he can neutralize these lefties like Fielder, Moreland, guys like that, and then, hold Beltre in bay, and he could be in line for a pretty good start. I like him as a sneaky tournament pick.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And obviously, I think you're kind of looking around the area a little bit cheaper than Gio Gonzalez on FanDuel. He's just 400 less on DK, so I think he is an interesting swerve because I do expect Gio to be the popular play there. 8-10 here. Aaron Nola, Zach Davies, 8.5. Brewers and Phillies in Miller Park. And I asked you a little while ago. I think Aaron Nola he popped up on my radar today, and obviously Miller Park kind of a down factor for him. If it was Philly, I think I like him more because I think it is a great matchup for him against this Milwaukee team that, yes, they can be good at times, but overall it's not a lineup that's going to, knock around too many pitchers.
Right, and I think Nola, I mean, he does, pique my interest a little bit. I think Sanchez is a better pick, but he'll also be a much more popular pick. So if you're looking at that swerve when making multiple tournament lineups, putting Nola into the Dodgers stack, Rockies stack, even Cubs tonight, I mean, I think that's a pretty decent strategy if you want to be different. I mean, we've seen that Nola has the strikeout upside. And this is a Brewers team, a young Brewers team that does like to strike out. The only thing, I mean, holding Nola back, as you said, Miller Park, if he makes mistakes, if he walks batters, puts guys on base, and then, a pitch doesn't go the location he wants it to, I mean, those mistakes are likely going to be exploited in Miller Park. So that's the downside. That's the true boomer bust nature of this pick here. But, yeah, I'm kind of keeping him on the back burner if I'm making multiple tournament lineups.
Yeah, and I think, you're obviously looking at a small sample size this year, but, going back to last year, decent strikeout rate of 23%, and he does have that strikeout upside. We've seen it against, this season against the Padres and the Reds, of course, and obviously Washington, he had his blow-up. But overall, I think he is an interesting play, and I know the more you look at Sanchez right there in that same price tier, it's obviously you're leaning towards him, but on a slate that is pretty chalky, I think he's a solid swerve. And DraftKings a little too pricey for me, 8,300. I think FanDuel's where I would maybe make that swerve at.
Yep.
On the other side, are you staying away even against this Phillies offense?
Yeah, I'm not on that Davies train. If I'm going cheap, I'm going with Sanchez, Nola, those guys. But
yeah,
Zach Davies no, sorry.
Yeah, no, I definitely.
Not sorry.
8-10 here. You got Stephen Wright taking on Colin McHugh in Minute Maid, 8.5 over under. Wright, the knuckleballer, has pitched pretty well this season. It's always a risky thing here. You never know with the knuckleballer. Is he going to be on? Is he going to be off? Obviously, Minute Maid, not a great place for pitchers. I'm not really looking at either of these guys. I'm actually looking at both more so hitters, especially kind of swerving off of course tonight.
Yeah, and I'm of the same mentality, really. McHugh, he does have that upside, but, I mean, there's other guys that similar price range that you like a lot more, higher floor and maybe higher ceiling in easier matchups. So, I mean, I'm going to write McHugh off just for that reason. I don't even feel really bad about it. Stephen Wright, on the other hand, he's usually a guy we target against. I don't know if we can target against him with a ton of confidence today, just given I don't really know. I haven't looked it up yet, how those Houston batters tolerate the knuckleball. That's something I'll have to look up. Definitely a different look for them tonight. So you have to be kind of concerned about that. Ballpark really doesn't cater to pitching. So, yeah, I'm likely to pass here.
Yeah, I mean, Wright's pitched, well, 6 innings in each of his 2 starts so far. Obviously, both against Toronto. 3 earned runs between the two. He pitches, a ton. I mean, both of the starts he's pitched over 100 as he can because he's a knuckleballer. 16, 17 DraftKings points without a win there. At that price tag is kind of interesting, but it is a boomer bust play with any knuckleballer. We've seen it before. It's either on or you're off, and these hitters can either hit it or they can't. So you're taking a lot of risk, but if you're rolling out multiple lineups and you want to throw him in as a cheap play and just stack every hitter you want, I don't hate it.
Yeah, I need to learn how to throw the knuckleball so I can play in the major leagues. So just perfect that pitch and throw it, and then I'll do it till I'm 45.
Yeah, I mean that's good.
I'm 27 now, so I kind of have a late start at it. But hey, I still have a good 17, 18 years in me if I can get it going.
And Minnesota has to be fielding, open tryouts at this point for a back end starter.
Yeah, they're only 2 injuries away from taking a guy off the street, so I might as well start warming up now.
Next game here, Orioles and Royals. Giovanni Gallardo, Chris Young, over under of 8.5. The only benefit here is Kauffman Stadium limiting homers, but outside of that, neither of these guys on my radar against these two offenses.
Yeah, definitely not. And I think Baltimore is a sneaky stack within this. I mean, ordinarily, if we didn't have a game in Coors Field, Baltimore would probably be one of the favorite stacks right up there along with the Cubs. So I think Chris Davis, guys like that are, they're going to be lower than usual ownership percentage. Granted, they're against fly ball pitcher Chris Young. So we don't like the park factor there in Kansas City, but as we know, when Chris Davis hits the ball, I mean, it'll go out of any ballpark that man has ever made. So I kind of like that as a hair pick. Don't like either of the pitchers tonight.
Yeah, me too. And I'm glad you mentioned Chris Davis. He's one of my favorite swerves just because you're looking at Rizzo, Davis, and Gonzalez all on the same price, and he's definitely going to be the third lowest owned out of those three. So, yeah, I'm glad you brought up that call. Next game here, obviously, Coors. Is there any pitcher you're looking at in that game?
Not really. It's kind of funny that Jonathan Gray on FanDuel is listed on the DL as well. So if I were his agent or anything, I would say just stay on the DL and don't pitch this game because it's not going to be good to your future in the MLB. But I think Kazmir, I mean, we were kind of talking about this before the show. I'm not going to play Kazmir at all, but I think he has a pretty good chance at maybe quieting some of these Colorado bats. I mean, Colorado against right-handers, I don't think that's a very good recipe anyway. You have Arenado, you have Story. Cargo's not bad against lefties, but like I said earlier before the show, there's just like a bunch of platoon bums like Barnes, guys like that. So I don't think Kazmir's going to have a bad outing. I don't think his strikeout rate is going to be anywhere where we want it to be for fantasy purposes. Obviously, there's a ton of risk still, but just take that as maybe a little bit of a word of caution on paying up for some of these Colorado guys at their very expensive price points like Arenado and Story.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think that's a good point. While we're not using Kazmir, I think you see maybe 3 or 4 runs max from maybe this Rockies team tonight. I think that is a possibility, and obviously that's not going to pay off any of those hitters. And there's just far better guys tonight than those Rockies bats. But I'm definitely in agreement. 940, another two lefties on the hill here, Pirates and Diamondbacks, John Neese, Patrick Corbin. Both guys I like at times, not tonight. Obviously, these two offenses are capable of mashing left-handed pitching. I think more so the Pirates side tonight, but obviously Corbin's more the better pitcher. But this is a game I also like targeting for GPP hitters, kind of swerving off some of those names. Guys like Starling Marte, McCutchen, obviously Goldschmidt, Castillo, kind of the 4 names that really stand out to me off the top of my head.
Yeah, I was just going to say that not targeting either of these pitchers, but the Pirates make for a decent sneaky stack tonight. Corbin's coming off a great outing, but as we saw at home, that's just a really tough place to pitch. I mean, considering park factors, considering, the heat, the environmental factors of it, Corbin could get a little bit roughed up tonight. So I like those Pirate right-handed hitters.
Yeah, definitely. And this game's essentially a pick 'em, and with an over-under of 9, that's just kind of a stay away for pitchers for me. Breaking into the late games, obviously not a ton of offense expected from these 3 in comparison to the early games. Felix Hernandez, Nick Tropiano going over under 7.5. Seattle just small favorites. It's in LA, not a great hitter's park. Benefits those pitchers. Tropiano, I mean, he's a guy who's been serviceable so far to start the year. Wasn't bad last year just because of his cheap price tag. I mean, another interesting guy who you can take a look at tonight, just 6,100 if you wanted to rock him as an SP2 on DK and just boost up all those bats.
Yeah, and then on the other side of this, Felix, I don't think I'm going to go there. I mean, he's not looking like himself yet. Kind of like the Matt Harvey thing. I want to see it first, and then I'll think about picking him, especially at 11,000 on FanDuel. Definitely can't go up there and get the stacks that you want. So Vegas doesn't really like Felix today either. It's essentially a pick-em game almost. In a lot of the optimizers that I saw, a lot of the projection systems are kind of hating on Felix too. So it's a stay away from me, definitely.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. On a slate with Coors on 15 games with a lot of the other options, Felix just, as you mentioned, just doesn't look like himself. Tropiano, though, I think his strikeout rate is up there, and his swing strike rate is actually pretty impressive, 11.5%. Obviously, it's in a short time span of just 48 innings. But overall, I mean, he's had some solid looks, and I don't mind him tonight in tournaments. Next game here, Marlins and Giants. Obviously, AT&T Park, beneficial for hitters or for pitchers there. Jared Kozar, Jeff Samardzija, over under 7.5. Giants are strong favorites, minus 161. Oddly enough, Samardzija's best start has been at Coors this season, but he's looked bad everywhere else. He's too expensive for me on DraftKings, 9,300, and even on FanDuel, 8,400. I just think price considered, even though I don't mind the matchup and the home park factors there, I just think there's too many other options I'd rather roll with.
Yeah, I mean, I'm of the same mentality. You really don't know what you're going to get from him. And maybe I'm just still a little bit jaded because I picked him in that opening series against Milwaukee, and he really didn't provide me with much of anything. So, but yeah, there's better options tonight. Don't go with him.
Yeah, and then Kozar, definitely not on the radar on the 15-gamer against this Giants offense that's been struggling, but still, they're a team that pitchers don't get their high upside in. Last game of the night here, 10:40, Cardinals and Padres. Adam Wainwright is the guy we were talking about before the show, going up against Andrew Cashner. Over-under is 7. And the Cardinals are a team I actually think could be a difference maker tonight in GPPs, especially some of those left-handed bats against Cashner. Petco, obviously a friendly pitcher park, but did have decent power numbers to left-handed bats last season. Obviously just courtesy of Cashner, Shields, and Kennedy at times. But I think guys like Carpenter, Adams, and Moss, I mean, kind of an interesting one-offs if you want to make a difference in that Dodgers core stack there.
Yeah, and definitely not looking at Cashner. His WOBA against lefties last season, something outrageous like 380 plus. So definitely want to stay away from this Cardinals lineup that doesn't strike out much. They're just chock full of left-handed hitters. On the other side, Wainwright looks like he's in a fantastic spot, but is this actually Adam Wainwright, or is this someone posing as Adam Wainwright? Because he doesn't look like himself right now. Strikeout rate really isn't there. As we were talking before the show, like even if he gets through this game clean with a win, maybe gives up 1 or 2 earned runs, I mean, what's his upside really for the price? I mean, if he's getting what his past 2 games, pitched 10 innings, 4 total strikeouts. I mean, there's just not much upside to be had, even in a great matchup. A team that does strike out a bunch, but I don't know. It seems like Wainwright's just a ground ball pitcher and nothing more than that, just an inning eater right now. So I don't really like it.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, the matchup's fine. It's just the way Adam Wainwright's pitching in that price tag. Not enough upside for any format really tonight. And a 6.6 swinging strike percentage so far through 3 starts, down about 2% from his career norm. Never been a huge strikeout guy anyway, but in matchups in the past, we've seen him dominate offenses. So, but we haven't so far this season. I don't think we'll be seeing much of Wainwright in cash games or GPPs throughout this year. So that's going to wrap it up here. Who do you think your highest scorer pitcher is going to be tonight? We'll talk FanDuel.
That's tough. Highest score overall. I can give you a highest per dollar play.
Okay.
But, highest score, I think it's going to be John Lester. Is that too chalky? Did I go with the chalk there?
I don't think so. I think, as you mentioned before, people are going to be paying down. So I don't think Lester's ownership is going to be too high, and I think weather concerns and the course slate's going to bring it down a little bit.
I really do like Gio. I should go out mentioning that. I mean, for all the reasons I said earlier, I think he can be up there per dollar with Lester. So I think I'd take that price cut probably.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. And I'm on similar thinking. And I just think we both agree that Aaron Sanchez is going to be probably the more chalkier play now as we think about it with the course slate. But points per dollar, he might pay off as well.
I thought you were going to come out with some Stephen Wright, but I mean.
No, I'm not that much of a homer.
All right, maybe if he has a better matchup next time around.
Yeah, definitely. If he's still sitting below 7K and facing, I don't know, some bum team, yeah. I'll take a look.
Let's have him get roughed up this game so his price drops and we can, have even more value next time.
That's going to wrap things up here with the pitcher nail down. Check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content.